of your thought process. Additionally, let's talk about some food introductions. This is one of the biggest questions I get from my new mothers is, how do I introduce food to the child? What's the proper order? When, at what month, at what age? And there's some things to keep in mind. Kidney and liver development are not going to occur super early. So we don't super early. When I say super early, we need at least a good solid 6 months before those two organs are fully developed, where the baby is able to really start digesting certain types of foods. So my advice is no real food introduction until around the age of 6 months. And at that point, we really want to introduce only pureed vegetables. We don't want to introduce certainly no grain. We certainly don't want to introduce a bunch of fruit first, because we want to accommodate, we want the baby's taste buds to start accommodating vegetables first. And so introducing a variety like squashes and other forms of vegetables to the baby around 6 months. Always introduce only one food at a time. And when you're introducing that first food, let a few weeks go by. What we're looking for is we're looking for any symptoms or signs of allergic response. Now, an acute allergy is going to happen fast. You're going to see hives. You're going to see potential diaper rashes coming through the poop. If the baby, sometimes we'll see a major diaper rash that won't go away because the baby's getting something or getting exposed to something that he or she's allergic to. And sometimes we'll see really fussy, really colicky babies when food is introduced. And those, again, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for outbreak of skin rash, diaper rash. We're looking for colic. We're looking for excessive gas. Just paying attention to the baby's response and happiness when we're introducing a food. And I always introduce one food and give it a couple of weeks before you try to introduce the next. We're not in any huge rush in essence to introduce them, but always start with vegetables before working your way into the fruits, because again, we want to establish that the baby will actually eat some things as opposed to just being bombarded with sugar from the get-go. And as long as you're breastfeeding, remember the nourishment, the vitamin C and the essential fatty acids and the zinc and the iron and the chromium and the B vitamins are all going to come through breast milk. So remember, introduction of food is more of a supplementary as we're introducing these foods and making sure our babies can digest them appropriately. So vegetables first. Come around month 9, you can start trying to introduce some of the fruits and actually some very, very small quantities of some of the pureed meats. And so it's always best to introduce them one at a time, wait a few weeks, and introduce one thing at a time so that you can observe for any types of abnormal changes in behavior or illnesses. Additionally, there are certain foods we don't want to introduce at least until after 12 months. The first one, and I don't really recommend that it's really ever introduced, is cow's milk. A lot of parents, they fall victim or prey to those commercials, got milk commercials, right? It's one of the most successful marketing campaigns that's ever been put together. But milk is not a human necessity. Cow's milk is not a human necessity. Human babies do not require cow's milk for nourishment or for strong bones. And so cow's milk is highly allergenic. It's one of the top 8 allergens in the world. Corn is one of the top 8. Actually, it's not in the top 8. It's more like in the top 10. But we've got, most of your grains are in that list. And then beyond that, we don't want to introduce orange or tomato. We don't want to introduce fish, especially shellfish. We don't want to introduce dairy. We don't want to introduce egg until the baby is at least 12 months of age. So those are the big ones you want to wait on. Don't introduce those sooner. Wait at least till 12 months so that the baby's immune system has a little bit of time on the development side. Now, we don't have time in this session to get into vaccinations. I know that may be another question that's kind of on the back of a lot of your minds. I will say this just briefly. I don't think any baby should be vaccinated before the age of 2, if vaccinated at all, because their immune systems haven't developed. And all of the injuries I've ever seen in children happened with multiple dose vaccines before the age of 2. I mean, this is where we see it. And oftentimes, because I see this on a regular basis with patients, it's the day after they were given 3 or 4 or 6 different shots or vaccines. So I don't recommend any until after 2. And even then I recommend, if you're going to do it, and this is your decision to make, as it is for every parent, but if you're going to do it, if it's something that you believe that you want to do, I recommend a scattered schedule. And there are a number. There's a reference I would recommend that you check out. One, you can go check out The Truth About Vaccines, which was a documentary series just put on. You can also go check out the work of Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. my advice would be just get educated on the potential side effects and get informed consent. Know what the risks are, know what the dangers are on both sides before you make that decision. But I don't recommend anything before the age of 2 because the baby's immune system hasn't developed well enough to really be able to handle the immune burden that's going to be injected. And remember, a lot of vaccines, one of the main ingredients is egg. And just what did I just say? I said, don't introduce egg in the first 12 months of life because the likelihood for a reaction that can be quite devastating and quite dangerous is much higher. Okay, so that's kind of a general breakdown. I know we could talk and we could go on and on and on about this, but I want to make sure I get to some of the questions that are coming through. Here we go. Let's pull this one up. Okay, I don't know about a question. Let's see here. It's good info. He talks. Okay, so yeah, let me answer the question. The implied question here is very simply, will this video be available yet later? Yes, we're going to upload this video later to the website, and I'm going to have a lot of great resources on breastfeeding and what you need to know about breastfeeding and baby and mom's nutrition. So tune in. If you're not already subscribed, go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/glutenology, and hit the subscribe button. You'll get access to all of our videos that we post up there. Or you can also go to glutenfreesociety.org and you can subscribe to our newsletter. And of course, you'll get access as these things become available. Let's see here. Next question. Oh, awesome. Monica had 6 babies. Wow. Awesome. Awesome. All done naturally. Very, very, very great. Thanks for chiming in. Melissa, do I recommend a certain probiotic for kids that were born? Yes, absolutely. Now, I recommend it in 2 ways. If the child was born cesarean section, we want mom on a probiotic, and we want mom breastfeeding because there are certain probiotics in breast milk that are not in the gut, and that will pass along to the baby and help build the baby's innate immune system. So one of the best sources of probiotics for a newborn baby, even born by cesarean, is going to be breast milk. Now, as far as a probiotic for children born cesarean, even at the ages of 6 and 3, I have something that I recommend children take. It's called Biotic Defense, and we have a children's version, which is a powder that can be mixed in with breast milk, or it can be mixed in with water and just taken orally. But it's called Biotic Defense, and it's Biotic Defense for kids, and it's a powder. So you can find that on glutenfreesociety.org in our store if you want to purchase that. Let's see here. Carla's chiming in. I worked labor and delivery. You're right about the midwife and doula. Induction with oxytocin, the babies get in distress, thus C-sections become necessary. Carla, I'm so glad you chimed in there. Thank you so much for chiming in. It's so true. Oftentimes, look, I'm not passing judgment on any doctors who deliver babies. It's not. Again, I'm just talking truth, and sometimes when we generalize, we're not being true about everyone, absolutely everyone. But this is a very, very common practice: is that doctors get in a hurry. And they want that baby to be delivered sooner because it's Friday and maybe they got a boathouse they want to go to, or whatever the case is. Again, I'm not passing judgment, but that's the reality. Is that oftentimes labors are rushed, and oxytocin, the hormone, is given to try to induce the labor. And this is one of the most common causes of a cesarean section because it puts the baby's heart in stress, and as that monitor's on there, all the nurses are like, oh, now the baby's in distress. Oh, we better, and then they assume the baby's being choked by the cord, and then now you're being wheeled into the operating room to have a C-section. So my advice is let nature run its course. You can certainly let the professionals do their job if a true emergency comes up, but don't let the professionals pressure you into something you're not comfortable with. Natural delivery is very, by the term, natural delivery is very natural, right? So let nature run its course, minus a true emergency, but don't force it. The baby's going to come when the baby is ready to come. Do I have a prenatal vitamin that I recommend? Yeah, I've got several. If you go to glutenfreesociety.org, multi-nutrients is a great multivitamin for a pregnant woman. I recommend 6 of those tablets a day, 2 with each meal, 2 with breakfast, 2 with lunch, 2 with dinner. Another one I have is called Ultra nutrients, and that one's 4 a day. It'd be two twice a day with food. And then what I would recommend supplementing in addition, not just those 2 things, not just a multi, but is supplementing with an omega-3. And it's very critical to supplement with an omega-3 unless you are just eating a lot of fish. I mean, you're not probably going to get the high quantity, especially in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. This is where a lot of eye and brain development is occurring, and we need that DHA, that DHA from the omega-3, docosahexaenoic acid. And if you're not on a supplement, unless you're eating a really rich seafood diet, you're probably not getting a ton of that in your regular diet. So I recommend an omega-3 supplement as well during pregnancy, one that's been definitely tested for mercury contamination and other metal contamination and other types of contaminants, because fish oils, if they're not properly tested, can contain a lot of contaminants. The one I recommend is you can find it on Gluten Free Society in our store. It's called that too. I have one called Ultra Omega and one is called Omega Heal. If you've had your gallbladder removed, I recommend Ultra Omega because it has lipase in it, which is an enzyme that helps you absorb the fat. And if you don't have a gallbladder, that's a little bit harder for you to do. So that's why there's 2 different formulas there. Okay, good questions. Let's see here. Oh, Amberly, congratulations. You're doing 3 days. Awesome. I wish you the best and hope everything goes smooth and on point. Super excited for you. All righty, let's see. Here we go. Another question's coming up. Is it correct to avoid grains, especially the ones with gluten? Well, first of all, let me clarify. All grains have gluten. I know some people say that's not the case, but there's no such thing as a gluten-free grain. If you're confused on this issue, please go read the book behind me right there, No Grain, No Pain. All the science is in there. You need to understand that there's no such thing as gluten-free grains. Very, very important to know that. Now, let's continue on with the question. And legumes in children's diet. So I don't recommend introducing legumes until after about 12 months. So I don't recommend introducing grains at all. Although I would say if you're on the fence about that or skeptic about that, you should probably have your child genetically tested for gluten sensitivity. Genetic testing for gluten sensitivity is really simple. It's a cheek swab. You get cheek cells of the baby's DNA, and you can know what is their genetic pattern, what is their propensity to react to gluten. It's a very simple type of testing to do, and relatively inexpensive considering the alternative of not knowing and feeding your baby grain and making your baby sick. But I work and I train doctors across the world, and the thousands of doctors that I've trained and worked with, if you ask the question, Doc, if you could do one thing about your patient's diet to help them either overcome autoimmune disease or to help them prevent autoimmune disease, what would be the one thing that you would keep out of their diet? Almost all of the time, the answer is gluten or grain. And if we want to be even more comprehensive, the answer is no grain, no dairy, and no processed refined sugars. So, you're going to do yourself a lot of favors by keeping those things out of diet. Now, as far as legumes are concerned, legumes can be problematic for a lot of people, but they're not necessarily problematic for everyone. So I don't recommend an introduction until at least 12 months. And then when you are making an introduction to legumes, if you have a strong family history of autoimmune disease, I don't recommend it. If you have, for example, if you've got family members with rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or any other form of autoimmune arthritis, I don't recommend it because the lectins in legumes can be triggers for chronic inflammation. Okay. Okay, good question. Good question. Thanks for chiming in, Ivy. Okay, looks like we're out of questions. I think I got them all answered today. So again, thanks for chiming in. I'm going to post this video up later, but what I would really appreciate you to do, a couple different things for me. Number one, click the like and share button. We got to get this information into more hands because we're all footing the bill. If you're a taxpayer, you're footing the bill for a lot of sick people. And the number one cause of bankruptcy in the U.S. is healthcare bills, and it's because of the misinformation and the disinformation that's out there. So get online. Don't be scared. Become a warrior, right? Become a warrior advocate for good health, and help me get this word out there by sharing, commenting, liking, and make sure you also subscribe. Again, subscribe to my YouTube feed at Glutenology, and subscribe to Gluten Free Society and the Dr. Peter Osborne newsletter so that you can stay up to date and up to breast on all the greatest and latest health information. Thanks so much for being with me today. We will see you next week, same time, same channel. Dr. Osborne out. Have a wonderful weekend.